Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for August 24th through 30th. This week I read 3 books, I watched 3 shows, and I listened to 1 book. First this week we have a book that I've actually been reading for the entire month, just in little fits and starts, and that's Out North. This is a non-fiction book about the archiving and activism of queer life in Canada. What originally drew me to this book is obviously America likes to overinflate itself, and because of that here in Canada we hear a lot more about American things than Canadian things necessarily. For example, growing up we got a lot of American television. Obviously that's changed a little bit now that we don't have cable, but that being said, a lot of the things on streaming services are still set in America, so hearing things about queer activism and history in America versus Canada, I've definitely heard a little bit more than that, just in my general life, so I wanted to rectify that and I wanted to even that out some. This book has decades of information. It's got these great pictures of different things that have been pulled from the archives, and it's just such a valuable resource that comes with this list of recommendations for other books to read at the end of it that are also nonfiction, and I made a list of those so I could try to find them in the future. If I were the type of person to keep a coffee table where I had coffee table books, I would definitely put a copy of this on it, because the dimensions of it are absolutely huge, but it is also great to just leaf through and see these amazing different things from decades past. My next book is something completely different, and that's Love and Other Conspiracies. This is about a producer who works at this company that produces these different videos that go up on YouTube. I don't know if they actually name it as YouTube, but it's basically that. It might be an independent website that hosts videos, but basically I'm just calling it YouTube because that's what I pictured in my mind. And she's been slumping a little bit in her job recently, not because she's bad at her job, but because her ex-boyfriend decided he wants somebody else to produce the show that she's been working on all this time, and the reason the show is really good is because she's been working behind the scenes. Sure, he's the face of it or whatever, but he wouldn't be nearly as far ahead at doing it if it wasn't for her in the first place. However, he is a pretty toxic ex-boyfriend, so he's broken her down quite a bit, so she's gotten to the point where she doesn't really believe in herself. One of her bosses brings her into the office and is like, okay, look, we can't really justify keeping you on unless you're actually on a project, so I need you to give me a pitch by Friday, and if that pitch is accepted, then we'll give you a little bit of money to produce the first season, and basically the best overall first season that comes out of our studio, they're gonna get to do more seasons. And she's like, great, now I just need to find an idea in like 3 days. So she watches a movie while getting drunk with her friend and then goes into research mode, and in the middle of the night, what's playing on TV but this weird conspiracy program, but this one guy on it seems really personable, and she realizes that he has a podcast. He has a really big backlog of episodes, which means he definitely has listeners already, and even though she doesn't believe in any of the stuff he's saying, she thinks that he would be a great presence because he's really pretty, he's really knowledgeable, and he kind of makes you believe even though she doesn't actually believe any of it. You just want to keep watching because he's so engaging. She decides that this is the guy that could beat out her ex's show, and she wants to do that at all costs. While working together and hunting cryptids, sparks fly. This is delightful. It's a romance, it's great, I really very much enjoyed it. I definitely wanted her ex to go kick rocks more than once, and I really liked how much these characters got along considering they don't believe the same things at all. This also had a lot to do with grief and caretaking and mental health, so be sure to check any trigger warnings if you need to. The next book I finished this week is Persepolis. This is a graphic novel about this woman growing up in Iran in the 70s and 80s and eventually leaving Iran to go live in France. This was also the period of the revolution, so she went from being a free-spirited child to suddenly having to wear a veil everywhere she goes, and all of these other things about society changing, such as universities, they're too decadent, we're getting rid of those. So her whole idea of becoming a doctor in the future, right down the drain. Also as a kid she thought she was going to become a prophet, and that's definitely something interesting about her experience. Not to mention that her great-grandfather was actually a king, which means that her grandfather, who she's actually met before, was a prince but had different politics to his dad, and all of that's a big thing. Just from reading this, I don't really feel qualified to tell you much more of the history than that, but I found it fascinating, and I find it endlessly fascinating how different childhood experiences can be throughout the world and how different they can be throughout the decades. This was published in 2003, and it's definitely something that's been on my list for ages, but I finally got around to it. As for the shows I watched last weekend when we were away visiting family, we left part of the family to go back to where we were sleeping and see some of the other family, and they were already watching episodes of Last One Laughing, the Canadian version, to start with. The premise of this show is it's set up in a kind of a Big Brother style format, not that I've ever actually seen it before, but you have cameras kind of everywhere in this living space. And these comedians are put into the space for 6 hours, and the whole thing is you're just trying not to laugh. As soon as you laugh, you get a warning, and then as soon as you laugh again, you are disqualified. I'll try not to talk too much more about who was on the show besides a lot of people that I recognized, and I was delighted to see all in one room together because we came in kind of near the end of the show, so I saw probably the last 2 or 3 episodes, so I definitely know who won, and it was definitely well deserved, so I don't really want to talk too much about the people themselves. But let me tell you, there were some great contestants. After that, we ended up watching the first 2, maybe 3 episodes of the Australian version, and I've never heard of any of these people minus the host, which pretty much everybody will recognize, but they definitely did some wacky things during this. It's a format that I quite enjoy. Speaking of formats I quite enjoy, we might as well talk about Taskmaster. I finished the 19th season of that. It was delightful. I absolutely loved every minute of it. I laughed so hard so often that I was worried I was actually bothering my roommate who was watching something else upstairs. What I really love about watching a show like this is little in-jokes happen as they're filming the portions in the studio where they're rewatching the tasks and seeing how people did at them. So there was the whole running joke that Fatia and Greg are eventually going to get married. There's the whole running joke that Jason Mantzoukas just destroys everything, and I'm just like, if he could stop doing that, actually, it's probably costing a lot. But also at the same time, you can tell that he's really nice, and that feels weird because usually when it's like this person has toxic, destructive tendencies, but he's actually really nice, that feels like a red flag. So I'm just like, ooh, I don't know how to feel. And then Matthew was just so wholesome. Sometimes you could tell that Rosie had no idea what was going on, but she was having a great time doing it. And Stevie was just also so delightful. There was one task in particular where they were told ahead of the task that they had to fail it, but in the most spectacular way possible, and I legitimately felt really, really bad for the 3 people that managed to actually do that. As for the other show I watched, it was Silent Witness. Of course you knew this. I finished the 23rd series and I'm most of the way through the 24th series, and my goodness, I don't really want to tell you about the character death, but there was definitely one in this that I did not see coming. There were also little continuations of subplots from previous seasons, such as one of the characters has a brother, and that was a whole big thing a long time ago, and that's been brought back to the forefront because of a paternity issue that is really interesting, but also that brother is still making really questionable decisions, so that's a whole thing. And as I left off the last arc, Nikki actually acknowledged the fact that she still has a boyfriend, even though she hasn't talked about him for like 2 seasons, so I'm like, oh, I guess that's still a thing that's going on. But as we left off, it was her making eyes at somebody else, and I was just like, this needs to not happen in a weird way, because we literally just talked about how he previously screwed over somebody, and like, I just need this to not be super dramatic. If this is going to happen, I need it to happen in a way that is not shitty. Please. As for the book I listened to this week, that was The Guncle. This was absolutely delightful, except for in a heartbreaking sort of way, because the circumstances are super heartbreaking and there's a lot of grief in this book. But overall, because of our protagonist specializing in comedy, it's also kind of funny throughout. So the breakdown of this one is our main character is named Patrick. He used to be on a TV show that is kind of like Friends. It's not exactly Friends, but in my head it's kind of like Friends. And he went from a small town in Connecticut where his family still lives to doing this, to about 4 years ago getting himself out of the public eye. He's in Palm Springs, so he's like really close to Hollywood still, so he could still go back, but he hasn't really felt like doing that. He's kind of cloistered himself inside this community and just has limited contact with the outside world. However, his very best friend, and also now his sister-in-law because she ended up marrying his brother, has just passed, and they have 2 kids together, which is absolutely heartbreaking in this situation. He didn't actually get to see her before she passed because he felt that he'd be taking time away from the kids and her husband, which he felt wasn't fair. But he goes back for the funeral and finds out that his brother has actually been battling an addiction with pills since Sarah has been sick for these 3 years, and he is going to check himself into rehab and wants Patrick to take the kids for those 90 days. Originally Patrick's like, that is a terrible idea, I don't know what to do with kids, like why would I do that? But as soon as his older sister just thinks it's a done deal that the kids are gonna come stay with her because she's so maternal and Patrick is just a loser, he kind of comes around to the idea, especially after spending a little bit of time with them and seeing kind of what they actually need. So they come back to California with him and he tries to make the best of this time with them. There are moments of this that are absolutely heart-wrenching because not only is he grieving the loss of his friend, he now sees these children that look just like her and he's trying to help them through that, but he's also not completely through the grief of losing his partner, whose life was taken in an automobile accident where his partner was driving and he was in the passenger seat. And Patrick got a small injury, but ultimately his partner died, and that's something he hasn't fully grieved. There's just so much to love about this book, and one of the additional things, if you're listening to the audiobook, is it's actually read by the author, which I always love when that's a thing. Even if I don't know the author, even if I've never heard of the author before, as soon as the audiobook goes, and this is read by me, the author, I'm like, that's great. There is also a sequel to this, so I look forward to reading that. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment, but want to make sure that I know you're here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you happen to be on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that, as always, is down below. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!